Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
yes.
A boundary might have been crossed that you, right?
That's
so
correct.
Just an example it is a great example. I appreciate that for giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen differences negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Yes, sir. What's up, everyone? Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are tuning in from. We appreciate all the love, support, and the views. This is Working It Out Across Generations, the show where we talk all things conflict, big and small. And being that we have a conflict resolution background professionally, we try to offer some tips for reconciliation. I'm one of your hosts, Justin.
And I am Dr. Lynne, your other host.
And we have a very, very good topic today, as well as a very special guest. I believe that in the times of today, right, everyone is kind of feeling it. Everyone is having some sort of nervousness or anxiety around what's to come in the future, and rightfully so. I want to be very clear to anyone out there who's feeling any way that I just said. Your feelings are absolutely valid, absolutely correct. We are in crazy times right now. And so we figured it'd be a very fitting episode to bring on a special guest who knows all about how to double down on yourself in these kinds of tough times. And I'm going to let Dr. Lynne introduce our guest.
Yes, I am so happy too, because, we have been talking about the concern people are talking about. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to center themselves or anchor themselves. And the truth is there are people who have answers for you. So we're excited to have one of those people today as our guest, Joey Chandler. Let's welcome into the show. Hey, Joey.
What's up, Joey?
Hello.
Joey Chandler is the founder of Find Your Way Consulting, where he helps business owners use their core values to solve problems and achieve goals. He lives in Reno, Nevada, and is a father, skier, and photographer. Listeners can access free training in the Declare Life Accelerator. We have all of his accessible links for you today on the show, every way that you can reach him, possibly, except probably at his home. We have we have available for you. Joey, we're so happy to have you, and just grateful that you can offer up something for folks who are having a difficult time, to be honest, in these times.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited for this conversation, and just props. And I just want to say congratulations to the two of you for getting this podcast going and all the stuff that you're doing. So it's a huge, huge benefit. So thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Yes.
We appreciate that.
Yes, but Joey, you're not just on a podcast. You live. You on Roku. You on
Everywhere.
Everywhere. That's right.
Global.
Global.
Quick question before we start, too.
Yes.
Is it easier to ski than snowboard? I've been hearing that.
Yeah, so there's more than a few conversations about that. I think learning to snowboard is the basics of learning to snowboard is easier. But I think, especially nowadays with the new skis that have been developed in the past 10, 15 years, you can get skiing pretty quickly, but snowboarding is much easier to learn. But you will fall a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was bruised up my first trip ever going. So
yeah, if you want to learn how to snowboard, figure out how to do it 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
If you do it 3 days in a row, you'll get to a decent level to where you can have fun. But if you keep doing just 1 or 2 days in a row, you'll always go back to that first day.
True word.
Right,
I gotta keep that in consideration. Thank you, bro.
You got a valuable tip right there. All right. So, other than skiing, what do you want our audience to know about who you are and what you do, Joey?
So I am ultimately I'm a coach. I help people figure out who they are. And what I've come to see over the past few years from my own experience of working with people is that we all have core values, and those core values represent who we are at our very best. And the more that we can access and use those things, the more we can bring our best selves to a situation. And in my theory, the more we can be our best selves in any situation, the better the chances we have of finding solutions that really work for us. So my main thing is that we absolutely have core values. Mine are courage, connection, and curiosity. And when you get clear on yours, you can start to ask yourself, how can I bring more of whatever your core values are to a situation? And it just works as a tool. The main thing I would love people to know about this is a lot of people look at core values as something really boring, not a lot of fun, because they've gone to workshops and seminars at their businesses, and they generally have forgotten about the work by the time they've gotten back to their cubicle or to their car. And I just say, let's get your core values very, very simple, get them down to 3 words, and then you can use them on a day-to-day basis to find problems or solve problems and achieve goals. And that way they become something that's real for you rather than something you just learned about at a workshop.
Yeah, Joey, I'm going to do this for the folks who are like me, because I buy a lot of those, whatever the topic is for dummies. I don't consider myself a dummy, but I need the basics. So what is your definition of core values?
Right. Oh, that's a good. I haven't actually had the. So, I say this is that no matter if you believe that we have a spirit, a soul, an energy, or you just believe this is the way the humans have developed over through evolution, that we all have something at our core. It's something like love or joy or happiness. It's something in that realm, and it's been with us for a long time. And there's some questions you can ask to access that. But our core values are the things that help us experience more of who we actually are. Okay. So I say I am love at my core. Okay. And what love means to me is courage, connection, and curiosity.
Yeah. So those of you who are watching, I'd love for you to identify for yourself right where you are. What would I say my core values are? So as we're going along in this conversation, you can apply some of the things right where you are. Yeah, I love the core value of love. I know that is absolutely one for me. I think that particularly in a time where we're being shown a lot of hate, even though I don't believe that's the majority of who we are and what's in the world. But at this time, when we're being shown that, I think that people have to hold on to love. And I always say love wins. Even when it just seems like the battle is hard, I believe that love wins. So do you have a core value you think for yourself that you would want to share with us?
I think definitely I resonate with you a lot, Joey. I think I would say curiosity is definitely mine. Anything that, I've just wanted to know more about, I've kind of just doubled down on making sure, I guess the courage part too, I'm making sure I'm not scared enough to ask the question, right? And not feeling too like prideful or anything to just ask the question or say, I don't know what I don't know. And I think that's only led me to find out more about what I want to know about. Mm-hmm. So I think curiosity for sure. So I think my first question to you is, how does someone go about finding out what their core values are? What does that process look like? I think we talk a lot more about, are people walking the walk? Are they walking the stuff they're talking, right? But overall, I assume the first step is spending some time with yourself. So in that time, what does it really look like to define what these core values are?
Yeah, fortunately, our core values have been with us for a really long time. So they're much closer to the surface than we realized. Awesome. And I basically did a bunch of work and came up with some questions. And people can actually get all of these questions if you go to my website, it's joeychandler.net/core values. There's a form that will walk people through, and you can identify your core values in about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. But the basic questions that we ask is when you interact with people, how do you want them to feel?
Okay.
And this is usually something like safe or heard or motivated or inspired or something in that realm. And then we say, okay, when you have experienced that yourself, how would you describe that feeling? Mm-hmm. and do it in language that you would have used when you were young? So if the person is like, if they feel safe, they want people to feel safe, heard, motivated, and inspired, let's say, they think about that. How does that make them feel? And then how would you describe that feeling? And that the word they would use would be something like love or joy or happiness, excitement or freedom. It would be something like that. And then you say, okay, with that, what are 3 words that help you experience more of that core thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I did this, years ago, it came back. Love was my thing. And then I said, okay, what does love mean to me? And there's not like a real intellectual process about it. It's just like, well, love to me means courage, connection, and being curious. And that is, those words are tweaked. I've modified them over time, but this whole process, what it does is, and why it's different than most core value work, is that it gets you thinking about how you want other people to feel. Mm-hmm. Because one thing I realized is that our core values are about ourselves and others. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like let's say one of your core values is creative.
Right.
Your ability to be creative is way higher if you're surrounded by people who are also creative.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
And vice versa, your ability to be creative is less if you're not if you're surrounded by people who aren't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited about that because I have to tell you that, we talk generationally here, right? And when I was coming up, the thing that was not valued in school was creativity. It was all about, right, at math, science, all of that. And so for me, that was never, I never looked at myself as valuable because I'm so creative, and it just was never appreciated, and nothing, very rarely did anything get taught from that space.
Right. Yeah. And this was honestly, I'm glad you brought up the generational side, because when I started doing this work on core values, I'm like, I just realized that there's an internal work, there's an internal side, and there's an external side. Mm-hmm. Our ability to fully express ourselves is limited if we're in a world that doesn't value expression.
Yes.
And this is where, like, I think sometimes like self-help coaching gets it a little bit wrong, because yes, there are things that we have to do. to be our best self. You know, we got our own internal issues and stuff that we have to work through.
Absolutely.
But we're also born into a world of systems.
Right.
You know, the world that I live in is different than the world that you guys live in, just because, you know, of all the stuff that is there. You know, ageism, sexism, racism, all those biases,
Right.
impact our ability to express ourselves.
Yeah.
And like a big moment for me was like 2017, 18, when it was Me Too happened, Black Lives Matter happened,
Right.
the shooting in Florida. It was just like a lot of things, like
Sure.
And I was talking about people, you know, I was talking about people at core values, and I was like love, and I realized that I couldn't go out and fully express myself regarding love in a world where there was so much racism and sexism and biases. It was impacting my ability.
Wow.
And then I was like, and I'll be honest, this was I felt it for the first time. Like, wait a minute, these are bad because it's impacting me, not just a moral issue,
Right.
Right. But all of a sudden, I'm like, this is, and that really, it inspired me. It got me going, and it had me doing the work and looking at different things. But that all comes back from this idea of like, how can I help myself experience my core values?
Right.
I want to have more courage, connection, and curiosity. That's what I'm best. And how can I help other people experience that?
Yeah.
I like that.
And you know, this is recent work for you. Recent meaning, you know, I'm taking you back to your childhood. Do you feel like you lived those values your whole life, or you know where I'm going, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the beautiful parts. Like when you get your core values down, you can look back in your life and see the places where you lived true to it, and those places where you didn't. Where you let your fears and doubts and all sorts of things just get in the way of being your full self. And it's refreshing, and it's also like, oh man, why'd I do that? You know, it's that sort of feeling.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know where I can say, you know, I don't know if it's a spirit, soul, energy. I don't get into where it came from.
Right.
But clearly we all have something that shows up really early. And so it's there. So it would have been there when you're young, and you can look back and see, like, every job that I had, I was a guy who I always end up brought in trainers to help train the staff.
Okay.
Like during the 2008, when, you know, everything crashed, I ended up selling shoes at a running store. And I brought in all the shoe reps to do trainings on how to sell, you know, the different shoes better. And that, it was one of those things I look back, like, it was just so natural for me. And people were like, why are you doing this? It was just like, that to me was the fun part of the job. It was that curiosity side and connecting with people. And I can point back, there's all sorts of little things like that. And then I can look back where I let some things get in the way, I let my own fears and doubts get in the way of being as courageous as I could be, or being as curious as I could be.
Yeah.
I like it. So I kind of have a two-parter here for you. So bear with me. I'm going to ask the first part now. Being that a lot of your work is in coaching, right? I assume that you're developing connections and building relationships left and right, and at base rate, just observing kind of like what people are going through and seeing, right? So in these specific times that we're in right now, what would you say people are struggling with or feeling challenged by most? I'll start there.
Yeah. So we have only an hour, right, to talk?
less now, but
right,
yeah. I mean, you said it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear here. I have all the answers. Just so you know, I have all.
I like it.
No, I think so I think we are in a transition time where what was working, we realized had bumped up against kind of a limit to where it was going to go. And now we're in this, and we know we needed to go somewhere new, but we haven't figured out the right way to or the best way to do that quite yet. So I think we're in that very important, very challenging time of kind of trying out different ideas and trying to figure out how to make things work. And so I think what people are feeling is that they have a loss of identity, a loss of self, and not so much. A better way to say it is the confidence in themselves,
Yeah.
the confidence in their ability to make something happen. So in times of great uncertainty, is the easiest thing you can do is say, okay, what are my core values and what do they say to do in this situation?
Right.
And it's one of those things where you can just wake up each day and it will give you some idea, like, how to be, part of connecting. For me, it was like, I was like, I saw you guys doing your show. I'm like, I want to get on it. That was part of that.
Yep.
Right.
So I think if you get grounded in who you are, and then you can start to say, how can I bring more of my core values, my best self to whatever they got going on, it's going to help them find a baby step and move forward, but also develop the confidence they have in themselves. And that will start to reveal the path that we need to go on, but also build up the confidence to actually take those steps. Because it's one thing to know where you need to go. It's a whole other thing to have the courage to actually take the action to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you're saying right now. And you already started to touch into a little bit of my second question, but take us through some of what your process looks like with your clients going through identifying core values, but specifically in tough times, right? So I imagine your main goal is keeping people motivated, encouraged, curious, right? And times like this will easily make people want to isolate, not want to do the things that are part of their normal routine. So what's your process when you come across a client who's dealing with something like that, and take us through a little bit of that?
Yeah. Thanks for that. I have a 5-step process that I walk everybody through. Awesome. And it's every single coaching call is always the same. It triggers a bunch of different things. The first thing that we do is that we celebrate something. And I just want to point this out, because celebration, I didn't know this, but celebration triggers dopamine, which gives you an energy boost and a sense of I can do it.
Yep.
And it's different than gratitude, because gratitude, like I'm grateful for the blue sky. But when you say I celebrated something I did yesterday, you have to take ownership of the fact that you did something.
Okay. Ooh, right.
You have to say, like, I made that phone call. I asked that girl out on a date. I got turned down for that sales call, like whatever it is, right? But and it's just by moving celebration to the front, I did this about a year ago. It really just gives the energy to do the things.
Yeah.
And then you say, what's the goal? What is it that you want to accomplish, and why don't we have it yet? And what that does is that allows for some of the negative thoughts. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. It allows that to kind of bubble up and get out of the way, because you don't want to operate on top of that.
Right.
And then we ask what is and isn't working in a particular area, and that broadens your perspectives. Because in most things, there's always there's some aspects that is working and there's some aspects that aren't. And you can, just broaden your perspective. This triggers the growth mindset, the Carol Dweck's work, just saying like, hey, there's areas to improve. And then we say, what do your core values say to do in this situation? And the part that is awesome is that I know very little about the vast majority of the businesses, the people I work with, but I know that if they bring their core values, their best self, they will always come up with an answer that is the best for them. And that way they build their confidence, they take action, and then go forward. And then the 5th step is from that list of ideas that you have, what action can you do today? And so those 5 steps, and they all trigger different aspects of dopamine and energy and confidence. And the other part is you can have an awful day. Like I'll say this: I did a ton of campaigning during the election. I was out. I live in Reno. It was like a purple state. I did a ton of work. So on November 7th, I woke up and I was like, mother, just But I said, okay, what can I celebrate about yesterday? What are my goals? What did and didn't work in all of our campaigning? What do my core values say to do? And what actions can I take? And I can't say I got over the disappointment immediately.
Right.
But within a few days, I'm like, okay, here we go. This is what we got to do. And that's a much different experience than many of my friends who did the same work, but are still feeling very stuck.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, people,
Thanks for that, man.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. And hopefully people, again, right, you identified or at least one core value and you started to take yourself a little bit through the process as Joey named it. I know I was trying to both listen and like do a little bit of it myself.
That's what I've been doing, yeah. This whole time, that's what I've been doing.
Right. I love that first piece is celebrate something, right? Because especially when you feel like everything's going wrong, not just in your life, but in the world, right? Like what is good? There is no good. And people really are in that place. It feels like it's important to identify something to celebrate, even if it's that you got up and just said, all right, I'm here. I'm going to do something with this day, even if that something I'm going to do is complain. Right? I'm going to celebrate that, right? That's the most I can do, which really leads me to my next question, which is there such a thing as a negative core value?
So this is where I'm a little bit different. There are people that say there are negative core values, and that person who is doing bad things is acting in line with those core values.
Okay.
And I can understand how that makes sense. But to explain why I don't go there, I got to go back about 10 years.
All right.
12 years now. I did a business where I did tribute videos for people, where I would get 30 or 40 people. They would send a little video clip saying why they loved or appreciate their mom or grandma or something. And we put all those videos together, and then they would show the full thing at a birthday party or a retirement or something of that sort.
Right.
And I did several hundred of those videos over a span of 4 or 5 years. And what I started to see is that somewhere along that there was always a theme in the video. The person was about love or joy or happiness. And it wasn't like super loud. It wasn't super overt. But after doing so many of those videos and spending so much of my time, there, and also being curious, I just started to get the sense of I got a sense of who that person was. And then I was reading books on knowing your purpose and knowing your why and all of that kind of thing. And it dawned on me that theme that I was sensing, that was who that person was at their core. And through a lifetime of acting and interacting with their friends, they had kind of, imprinted who they are on their friends. And then I was getting it reflected back to me in all of these clips, and it was getting condensed down.
Right.
And so, and the thing that I saw people were about love, joy, happiness, excitement, and freedom. Like those were
I love that. Yeah.
Those are the ones I did these videos for people from 7 to 90 all over the world.
Wow.
They were like, mom, and these were like, I did some very famous people, but also moms and dads and grandmas,
I love that.
And so what that said to me is that we all have something at our core. And it's been with us for a long time. Like I said, where it came from, I don't know, but it's there. And to me, the video showed evidence of it. So then I did some work, and it ended up being those 3 questions that I shared earlier. But to me, it says that we all have something like love or joy or happiness at our core. And the times when we act badly is when we're not living true to our core self.
Okay.
So that's how I approach it. Now, I think every theory, if it's any good, is going to bump up against a limit at some point.
Yes.
It just is. Like, and I am going to admit this fully. And I've had, people are like, so tell me about what are Donald Trump's core values? and there's a whole nother conversation there. But the idea is I believe that we all have something there, and what that allows for me, or what that has allowed for me as a coach and as a person, is that I look for those core values in people.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Mm-hmm.
people may call me all sorts of horrible names, but I'm
Right.
going to be looking for that love or joy or happiness.
Right.
It's down there somewhere, and I
Right.
just need to find it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And because that's a challenge for me too. But I think what happens, because in my conflict resolution work, like I really saw that sometimes people would say these people have no values, right? But really what I've found is that they actually have some of the same values as you, but for them they play them out very differently. And that is where I think the conflict and the struggle is for people. And I think just in general, they don't even have to play them out negatively, but I think in general, people feel like it's got to be mirrored back to me the way, if you have this value, then you're going to exhibit it the same way that I do. And that's not true. There are many different ways that people exhibit the same value as you. And we have to be able to understand that. At more of the interconnectedness, I think, is important. That's why. Yeah. So I love your response to that question.
Yeah, and to me, this is one of the things I encourage. I can't really control my people doing this, but when I do live workshops, it's just this awesome experience. Is you go around and ask people what your core values mean to each other. Like, Justin, you said curiosity. I'm guessing your definition of curiosity is different than mine.
Right.
But if I were to ask you about what curiosity means to you and listen and then not try to judge it, but just learn from it, then I'm going to expand my understanding of what curiosity means.
Yeah.
And I could talk about, well, what gets in the way of you being curious, or where are you really curious? And I will learn more and more about curiosity by asking those questions.
Yeah.
And what I've come to see is that there's things that we'll learn about our values only by talking to other people about them.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. And that's so good, because I'm going to tell you generationally, right? So when you say curiosity and we talk about, did I always have that core value? Well, I'm going to tell you that, yes, I did. And you know what? It got redefined as you just nosy child, because as a child, I was not allowed to ask a lot of questions, right? And be curious. So I love that, Joey, because I'm thinking, you said, what got in the way of my curiosity? My mama that got in the way. But also cultural norms. Like all kids, I wasn't the only kid that was limited in that way.
And that's interesting. I got that in school.
Okay.
I didn't get that at home.
Right.
So I was kind of living two realities of like, I know who I am, and I know even at such a young age the things that I care about, but then I'm being told, in one of the two places a kid is spending most of their time, hopefully, well, what do you know? And da 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 da. So I'm just like, I was always in this constant place of, I guess, am I living my core values, right? Not even if I know them, but like, in my defending of myself against this teacher, am I still doing it in love, or am I still doing it in curiosity of how they're receiving me? And of course, as a kid, probably not, but like, I think, looking in hindsight, it's always easier to look in hindsight. I can definitely see where some of that showed up in my life. And that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine that at home. And yet I'm hearing all the time, like, so many things of stuff like this. That was in people's homes. That was a part of their upbringing.
Right.
Not just their schooling. And a lot of this was just school. You get out at 3 and you're back to living the life you want to live. So that's so interesting. It kind of felt like no escape for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and for kids that are younger now, things are even changed a little bit more. Like, being yourself is really important, but it's also really scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary to have someone to stand up and say, I believe this or this.
Right.
Is hard. I mean, I have one son, and just seeing him grow up, you just see where society. It's not even society; it's just his buddies. Like things start to get expressed. Like, he's always like, "Dad, no other dad talks about core values this much." Like, stop.
I'm sure he can relate.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Conflict resolution. What are we talking about? Why? Boring. Sigh. But no, I mean this is really where the money's at. That's what I think. This is really where the riches are. So
Yeah, absolutely. And but it's really interesting for me. So how did you come up with your process?
It was a lot of, so back when that was 10 years ago, I was like, there was something here. It was one of these sense of like, I knew there was something here.
Right.
And like I said, I'd always been curious, always been interested in personal development. And so I just started playing with it, and it just was a lot of trial and error. And a big moment though was in January of 2022. This wasn't too long ago. I woke up burnt out. I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm done. I was going through a divorce, living alone, post-COVID. I was struggling with my business. Like it was just a lot of things. Right. And I just woke up one day. I'm like, it's like, I can't be anybody but me. I just don't have the energy. And I sat there, and a couple of days later I said, okay, well, if I can only be me, then who am I and how can I be more of that?
Right.
And I was like, well, I got these core values. I got 5 core values. Like I know who I was, but a few weeks later, but something wasn't working because I was burnt out. Like obviously you're not being your best self if you're burnt out. There's something, there's something not working right.
Right.
And a couple of days later, or a couple of weeks later, I had a conversation with a friend who told me that the Navy SEALs put everything in sets of 3 because apparently when you're getting shot at, it's just easier to remember.
Okay.
Got it. Said, and literally there was nothing profound or brilliant about it. Like, well, I don't know. I said, F it. I'll just do 3. It was because I just was like, I was like, that's easier. So I reduced mine down to 3 core values: the courage, connection, and curiosity. Almost immediately, it made a difference because I could wake up each day without any work and just say, how can I bring some courage, connection, or curiosity to my day? And at that point, when I was burnt out, it was like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to walk around my bed, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to get into bed. That was all the energy I had.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I would do that, and I would kind of be like, oh, I did. I would kind of celebrate myself. I didn't have the idea of celebration, but I realized I was celebrating who I was. Within a few months, I think it was by April or May, I woke up one day and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not burnt out. And this was kind of amazing because I didn't do like extra journaling or meditating or yoga or any of the stuff
that people tell you to do. Right.
I just
said, that works too, but you didn't do it. Yeah.
I'm like, I had nothing against that. I just didn't have the energy.
Right. Yeah.
The energy. And so and what it made me realize is that trying to be anything but who you are is exhausting. So if all you do is focus on being who you are, it frees up stuff. And then, so then I kind of went a little bit hog wild in core values. I was like, core values, It's like I went a little crazy. Like I did go crazy. Maybe 4 to 6 months later, I started to realize though that I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted for myself or my clients. Like there was something, and I realized that there's a difference between who we are and how we operate. And I said, okay, well, I need to have a system for operating because you can't just be yourself. You also got to get stuff done, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, okay.
Very true.
At some point.
You got to get stuff done. So I said, I looked at myself and I talked to people and we came up with these 5 steps. We said, okay, first thing you do is you say, okay, what's the goal that you're trying to accomplish? What is and isn't working in that area? What's the plan? What actions can you take? And then how can you grow and how can you celebrate?
Right.
That was it. I was like, awesome. We went out and did it. And a few months later, it was like just not seeing the results. I know the results can be better. And a lot of my clients were coming in and they're on the calls and they just were exhausted and tired and disappointed. And I'm like, how can you be disappointed? We have celebration as a step. It's like in the process. And what I realized is that too many times we're either too exhausted at the end of something to celebrate ourselves, or we're too self-critical.
Yeah.
Like somebody, like I can't, who am I to celebrate myself? Or who, so by the time we would do all that work, even though we knew there was a step there, we just weren't doing it. Or at least not enough where, and I said, well, okay, let's move celebration to the front. And people were like, can we do that? And I'm like, it's our process.
Right. Can we have dessert first?
Right. And from there, again, almost immediately, it literally changed my coaching calls 100%, because now people are coming on knowing the first thing we're going to talk about is something that they can celebrate.
Right.
And giving them the space, the freedom, and then building up the muscle. It's a little bit of a muscle to celebrate ourselves.
Yes.
So now, like, my coaching calls, like it's so, there's so no stress. Like it's just fun, because we start off with some wins, and a lot of times, sometimes people would be like, oh, I don't know, and there, I was coaching this guy who's an electrical contractor, and his thing was to like raise his prices. That was a big thing for him. And we were going along, and he had done that. And like 6 months after working together for about 6 months, he told me the story about how he was talking to a guy, and the guy just wasn't willing to pay the prices. And so the guy was like, my client was like, hey, thanks, but no thanks, And it wasn't even a big deal to him, but he was now being able to say no thanks to jobs to people that weren't paying his prices, and not being angry about it, just saying, I get it. This is what I need to really deliver a high value product or service. And he just had no idea. Like, I was like, do you realize what you just did? He's like, no. And when we talked about it, he was so proud, and he added a ton of business to his work and stuff. But the more you can just bring yourself, and you just practice and you practice and practice. And so my work, so the process now where we celebrate, what's the goal, what is it working, what do your core values say to do in the action, that is essentially what I've been doing, and it's been refined upon itself. It feels really good now maybe something will change in the future.
Right. Yeah. And looking at the comments, people are really vibing with this and really agreeing. And thank you, Melissa and Dr. Tawana, for being here, and everybody else who's watching everywhere else, because this is really not just good, but needed. I think people are just searching in so many of the wrong places to find something, and unfortunately being met with a lot of negativity. And for me, that whole celebrate piece is meant to break through a lot of that, because we hear those voices in our head and they're not celebrating us.
No, and they're loud.
Yes.
And they're very loud.
Yes, they are.
One fun thing you can do with that is anytime you got your, I suck, I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, some aspect of your core values are missing in that moment. So you can, whatever it is, you can just take a deep breath. Okay, what am I telling myself? I suck. What core value is missing here? Like, I would say, is it courage, connection, or curiosity? That the electrical contractor, one of his core values was contribution. And what he realized is that by not charging enough, he wasn't able to really contribute to people. So he would, at the end of the job, be all pissed off, and what was really missing was a sense of contribution, because he hadn't charged enough for it at the beginning.
Yeah.
So out of a sense of contribution, he started charging more.
Wow.
I like that.
This is so good. I love it. I hope folks are really applying this. Yeah, it's really good, because I know for myself, I I had that. It's so interesting because one of the things is a story that I tell about how coming up for as an African American, it was a core value was giving back to your community and staying in the community. And part of that value, though, meant that you didn't go after big money, that you had to be happy being poor, right? Maybe middle class meant you made, but you had to be happy. And I really one day said, I'm sorry, but I really feel like I'm worth more. And I really want to go into like the corporate space where I can get paid my work. And my dad said to me, oh, so you're going to go from the needy to the greedy. And it just crushed me. And it took me 3 years before I went back to that idea, probably because the lights were out and there wasn't no food.
Jesus, yeah. Being yourself only up to a moment, right? You know, to a point. You
only up to you starving and sitting in the dark.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think that happens for a lot of people too, that when you say be yourself, sometimes they have to separate what others have said who you are means. And sometimes that's cultural. Like this is right. This is who we are. You don't leave the community. You don't let your community down. And there's many different cultures that I know that it plays out in different ways. You don't leave your family. Everybody lives together. Everybody lives near. Like there are many different ways that I think that plays out. And so I think that this is such a good and important process for people.
Even the whole, like, you know, what, you think you're better than me? Like, it's like, no, I think I just have spent some time with myself and I know, and I'm confident in myself. I think that's something I ran into a lot and still do, but a lot more growing up when I was even younger, feeling like I know who I am, but also speaking like I know who I am. Like, you know, who you're not going to tell me because who knows me better than me? Who's spending the same amount of time with me than me, right? So, you know, I definitely got a little selfish there, right? But I think that we kind of need to, at least in kind of what I'm hearing, right? To make sure that, especially if we are people who are in or of service to others, right? I've heard the word charge a lot, right? We got to get selfish about that recharging to make sure we can go back out there and keep serving our communities.
Yeah.
And you know, that was something I was able to pick up on early. And so, you know, I really encourage anyone out there, you know, if you're struggling with this in any way, shape, or form, at any age, at any point in your life, please start now. You know, this episode's a great foundation to start, but especially for the young people out there, any young people are going to run into this episode, which I know they will. Get to know you, spend time with you. You know what I mean? No one knows you better than you. And that's okay. You know, there's safety in that. There's strength in that. So, Joey, I think you did a lot of emulating for people that, you know, that's where the money is. That's where the real courage is.
Yeah. You got to take care. And it goes back and forth. Like sometimes you got to take care of yourself. Sometimes you got to take care of others. Like it's not a, you know, throw the baby out the bathwater sort of thing.
Right.
It's finding that balance, and at different times, in different situations, that balance is going to be a little bit different. But the more to me, the more aware you are of your core values, the more you practice using them in small ways, you're going to be able to say, you know what, I want to gift this project to somebody because it really aligns with me. And other times you're like, look, for me to really deliver on this, I'm going to charge you, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. I love it. Absolutely love it. So you got one last question for him?
Not really, but what exactly would you want to just leave the group with? What would you want to leave people with about core values, about our time here today, about moving forward in these difficult times today? The last few minutes are really just yours to, you know, just leave it with our people.
Oh, thank you. Well, first off, appreciate you giving me the time and the space for this. Dr. Lynne, we met, it was like, I don't know, 6 years ago. It was a while ago.
At least, yeah.
And so I've always loved what you've done.
Thank you. Same here.
My main thing is, especially now, I think people knowing their core values and practicing using them over and over is the key, because nobody has the answer. There's nobody that says, here is the answer for how to make the world a better place, how to create the world that we want, because we're just living in uncharted times. But I think the more that we can say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, here I'm to take some actions for it. How can I help you experience more of your core values? How can you help me? I think is the place to do it. If they go to my website, I put out a ton of free training now, and people can identify their core values, start to learn that the process that I told you about, and just to help people to keep moving forward. It's just crucial because again, there's just so much chaos in the world that we have to be grounded in who we are. And I think that's actually one of the things that has got lost in the past, in the kind of previous iteration, is a real sense of like, no, let's take the time to help people figure out who they are so they can be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
love that.
Gotta really help people, especially at this time. Melissa says it's a great topic and conversation. Thanks, Melissa. And we know you are a loyal viewer, so thank you for that. Yeah. I know that for myself, you've given me a lot to think about and to really kind of take myself through those steps. And I'm just really appreciative of that. I can't say enough how valuable just that first step is to me, and the rest certainly makes sense in going through that process. But because I just see too many people that not only are down on themselves, but have no clue when you say celebrate something, right? They have no clue of how to celebrate anything. And I think social media can be a hindrance for people because people see people, right, living their best lives. We know that I've seen people take 50 to 100 pictures just to post one perfect one, right? So that is not living your best life.
Oh
it's
my
just
God. Oh my God.
and,
So real.
And so it's
My
so
entire
difficult.
generation.
Your entire generation.
Yeah,
Right?
And I actually this actually brings up one thing I just want to say is that it's about having the system that celebration is part of the system, the goals and the actions.
Yes.
And a lot of people, because I'll be like, hey, what can you celebrate? And people are like, you can't celebrate. Everything sucks, And I realized that even just asking people to celebrate by itself is a step. But if they don't have a system to back it up, they're just going to go down kind of a dark road.
Yeah.
And so what I encourage people is at the very least, get clear in your core values and then start to ask yourself, how can I use my core values today? Yeah. That is a system that will help you move forward. And because it's not personality based.
Right.
Yes, I have some abilities and, there's obviously I am me, but I don't wake up happy. Like I don't wake up cheerful. Like, oh, I want to go. I'm like, no, like, okay, what can I celebrate? What can I do this? Like I go through the steps, but it's having a system that helps you move forward, that doesn't ignore the pain and suffering, but it acknowledges where you are taking steps so that you can go back and forth and then move forward. And I think it'd really help people. And I think it's really, really necessary right now.
Love that.
Awesome. Joey, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think what you're doing and what you're putting out there, and especially what you shared with us today, is absolutely timeless. So please, any and everyone out there of all generations, I believe this is an episode that everyone needs to be tuned into and retuning into, rechecking in with themselves. We process things, the same things at different times and get different answers. And so, I'm also priding myself on coming back to things. And this is something that I'll definitely see myself coming back to in the future. So, Joey, I can't thank you enough for being here. To our audience, if you want to catch up with Joey, do some work with Joey, check him out at joeychandler.net. You can also access a free training in the Declare Life Accelerator. You go to joeychandler.net/accelerator. And if you would like to check Joey out on any and every social media, he is at Joey Chandler 70 on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I've never heard of Blue Sky, so learn something new every day. That's pretty cool. Joey Chandler 70 everywhere. And of course, if you want to check us out at Working It Out Across Generations, we are at e360tv.com, Trajectory Channel. Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, many more on the way. Facebook, Working It Out TV show, YouTube, Working It Out Across Generations. And if you would like to contact us directly, you can contact us at our email, Working It Out Across the Generations at e360tvlive.com.
Okay, and so I'm gonna celebrate the fact that I can laugh at myself, Joey, when you asking me for the link, and we already had it. I love that about me. I'm not afraid to say, "Yep, that was a moment." But it's been wonderful. Thank you all for tuning in. Come back, and Joey, we're gonna have you back too.
For sure. Y'all know what we say. Conflict is here to teach you something about yourselves. So go out there and find out what that was. I'm Justin.
And I am Dr. Lynn.
This was Joey, and this is Working It Out Across Generations. We'll see you next week.